Okay. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the Thomas Yoselev Business Center at the New York Public Library. My name is Peter Bankston. I am one of the reference librarians here at the Business Center, and also my specialization or my specialty is in international trade research. Today, our program is Insights into Launching Careers in International Trade. The moderator or the person that put together this program is Kathy Santillo, who is the board president of OWIT New York. So OWIT is the Organization of Women in International Trade, the New York chapter. Kathy has more than 25 years of experience living and working abroad, and she's represented a broad variety of organizations such as the USAID, the American Chamber of Commerce in Japan, and Harley-Davidson. The rest of the panelists are also members of OWIT New York. The first panelist is Valeria Bosio, who holds a master's in business administration from Temple University. She speaks 3 languages, which was English, Japanese, and Spanish, was it? I believe. I meant to write it down, I forgot. She works for Varus Insurance Brokerage as an international relations manager. Our second panelist is Gabriel Daut, who is from Brazil, and he has a master's in international law and in the past has specialized in tax law. He currently is foreign trade manager for Antares Couplings, a Brazilian manufacturer of industrial components. And our final panelist is Alexian Ali Wines, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Bauer Group Asia, a strategic advisory firm that specializes in the Asia Pacific. Previously, she served 8 years at the White House, serving in a variety of capacities under George Bush and Obama, President Obama, I believe. I forgot
President
to write that
Clinton.
down. President Clinton, I'm sorry, President Clinton and George Bush. So, and of course, our panelists have many other credentials, which I just didn't feel I had time to talk about today. So, if you have any questions, type them in the Q&A. Do not put them in the chat. Please put them in the Q&A, and we'll probably save them to the end. If there's a burning question, we'll try to address it during the course of the program. And before I turn it over to Kathy, I have to read a brief policy about, we use Zoom for this recording. And incidentally, this program is being recorded on Zoom. Afterwards, all registrants will get a link to the Zoom recording, as well as some relevant bibliographies of material as well. Anyway, the library uses Zoom for this program and does not own Zoom. Zoom has its own privacy policy that you can read on its own page. Zoom also has closed captions if you need them. Simply click on the CC button, which I believe is at the bottom of the screen, or something at the bottom of the screen. To understand how you and the library use this service, please read the library's privacy policy, especially the section that refers to third-party library services providers. A friendly reminder is that during library programs, everybody is welcome and respected. And also a reminder that if you'd like to hear more about the programs we have coming up, all you need to do is sign up for the Business Library's weekly email at www.nypl.org/biz signup. So that's BIZ signup. All right, so Kathy, if you are ready, please start your program. And I'm going to mute and stop my video. Thank you, Kathy.
Good.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The panelists and I are very excited to be here, and we'll do a little bit more of a background on what we're doing and while we're here. But I renewed my New York Public Library card, so I am a New York Public Library patron. And Peter did join us today from the New York Public Library, which has reopened, and that's a very happy note for us to kick off on. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here. As Peter said, OWIT New York, we are the New York chapter, and we were formed in 1996, and we provide networking and educational opportunities. And we have a wide community, and we are very happy to welcome you. If you're a student, membership is actually free. So feel free to contact us or look us up on the website if you would like more information. Happy to tell you more. We definitely are here to hear from the panelists. You've heard only a little bit about their bios, thanks to Peter. There's so much more for them to tell us about. But do keep in mind, if you'd like to volunteer, you're interested in the board, there's over 2,000 members of OWIT International with chapters across the country and across the world. So happy to talk to you about building partnerships if you have ideas about that. But most importantly for today, we are going to look at the insights that are here. So thanks to Peter and Anne and Alex at the New York Public Library for making all of this possible. We are going to talk today about the insights that these panelists bring. I am going to be very brief now. If there's time later, I'll be happy to hop in and talk more, but they certainly have lots to offer us. You will be hearing from each of them, and we have with us on our panel, as you heard, Valeria, who's actually a 2020 grad, if I'm correct. Right, Valeria? So very interesting perspective there. And we also have international business development and management that Gabrielle Doubt will be bringing from working in multicultural environments. So a very rich experience there. And we have stories that will be shared by Alexian Wines and the work that she's doing now and that she has done in the past. So I don't want to continue talking anymore, but I will kick off with each of the panelists just giving us a very brief introduction to basically where they are now and how they got there. So bear with us as they tell us just a little bit. We're going to start with Alexian and go to Gabriel after that, followed up by Valeria. So this is just them telling us a little bit about themselves. Alexian?
Thank you, Kathy. I have successfully managed to get myself off of mute. Thank you, Alex. And seriously, thank you, Kathy, Peter, OWIT New York, the New York Public Library. This is such an important topic, and I'm thrilled to be a panelist, so I appreciate the invitation. And in the spirit of time, I'm going to jump right in, and I'm going to say that never, ever, ever, never, never, ever, as a teenager or even as a young woman, did I imagine this professional journey that I have had. As a gal who grew up in a very small town with limited means, career paths for me were limited to what I could see from a very small lens. It was the people that directly were in front of me, teachers, secretaries, servers, nurses, etc., that were options from my vantage point. And to be clear, all of those roles are necessary, valuable, and crucial to communities. But I never understood just how big the world was and is, and how many additional opportunities exist because of that. So learning about international trade, it was not something that I had immediate exposure to. I would only come to be able to explore this later in my professional journey. But what I've found over the years is that the more exposure we have to people, to cultures, to education, the wider our life lens becomes, and the more possibilities we're able to see for ourselves and to create for our lives. Currently, as Kathy and Peter mentioned, I'm serving as the Chief Operating Officer at Bauer Group Asia. We are a government affairs, public policy, and strategic advisory firm specializing in the Asia Pacific. BGA, we provide insights into how governments, economies, companies, and individuals in the Asia Pacific interrelate and make decisions that impact businesses, which, as we all know, then impacts localities and ultimately impacts people. So as the COO, I oversee the company's operational aspects, including strategy, foreign office establishments, budgeting, contracting, while also trying to navigate the complexities of international business. Prior to joining BGA, I worked for 5 years as the chief of staff at another boutique government affairs and advisory firm in DC. And prior to that, prior to my public sector work, or private sector work rather, I was in the public sector. So I had the honor of serving for 8 years at the White House under Presidents Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, and most recently served as in the National Security Council, where I played an operational role. I was implementing and coordinating the president's foreign policy agendas and frequently accompanied President Bush on international trips to promote his foreign policy. That was amazing and eye-opening. In this capacity, I also gained unique insights into the importance and the need for diplomacy at all levels. So before that, I feel like this is a long bio here, so I'm going to try to keep going quickly. I also served in the White House counsel's office, acting on the front lines between executive and legislative branches. So it was a bird's eye view of government. And I also earned a very rare view into the inner workings of numerous federal agencies, as well as the US Congress. Now, a little trivia here. I am willing to bet that not many on this call, including myself, know just how many federal agencies there currently are. And this also lends itself to another very broad possibility for careers that one never even knew existed. But that's probably a conversation for another day, or maybe another webinar. Anyway, personally, I will share that I am really passionate about working with young adults. I am a motivational speaker. I focus on high school and college students, mainly with the mission of inspiring them to achieve their personal and professional dreams, regardless of their life's background. I also mentor work colleagues, both in the US and internationally. And I believe that we all have an obligation to be the change that we wish to see in this world. So I will just say thank you for having me today, and I'm excited to serve alongside these panelists.
Very good. Thank you, Alexi. And we're going to turn to Gabriel now. And also to let you know, we're also going to hear what didn't go so smoothly with these panelists. So stay tuned for that as well.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for, I'd like to thank the New York Public Library for the opportunity and the OWIT for the invitation, for the kind invitation to participate in this panel. And also, I would like to thank you for the participants for the interest in hearing us, hear our stories. I'm come from Brazil, so I started my family. My father had, when I was a kid, had a sales agency, so a small office. And as a kid, I went there, to play with the typewriter. We had typewriters last century, and stamplers, this type of stuff. And it's hard to say when I stopped playing and start working, but I had this transition. So I worked as a young kid and there. And then I went to law school, and I graduated. And at the end of law school, I got an internship in the federal prosecutor's office in the south of Brazil. I come from a small city in Brazil, and I got this internship. And then after the graduation, I was invited to become an assistant there. So I stayed there for 4 years in total. And then I became what you call in Brazil is a state attorney, somebody who represents in court the state. So I stay in this job for 8 years, represent the state mostly on tax cases and tax related cases. And then that opportunity, I studied tax law. And then after that, I had this will to become a professor. So I did a master's degree on international law. But right at that point, my father, who had this company, was retiring. I was very unhappy with the public service. I was in public service for 10 years now, and I was unsatisfied with the absence of direction or perspectives for change anything. We're young, you want to change things, and I didn't have that. So, and my father was retiring and needed someone to take control of the company. So I left the public service and went to take care of this company. And one of my roles and my contact with international trade was out of necessity, was to develop suppliers for our customers. So try to bring new products and new suppliers to Brazil. So I came in contact with suppliers from China, India, Turkey, Germany, Belgium, and several. We tried several different products and sources. And that during that time, I also did a training on negotiation. That's something that was still is very important for me, and also an MBA on focus on business process management. And after that, in the last 4 years now, I'm working for this other Brazilian company who produces industrial components. And so I deal with the exports mainly to Latin America, and imports from the US, Germany, India. I take care of that. And as I have this formation on business process management, I have some work that I do on the business process side. In parallel with that, I have with my wife a company. It's a business of leather bags, upcycled leather bags from Brazil. So we have a production in Brazil and we bring to the West. So also I do this part of the international shipping and these activities. So that's my story.
Well, working and playing, there doesn't seem to be much line, but for those of us who hear about tax law, professor, business with your wife, industrial components, there's quite a lot that you covered there. So thank you very much for telling us about this. I think we will have more questions for you. And our 2020 graduate, I'm going to pass it over to Valeria.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity, for having me here. My name is Valeria Balcio. I graduated Temple University last year in 2020 from the Fox School of Business. My major was international business. And if any of the participants here are in school still, and well, there's definitely a million things I would like to know, and hopefully I get to share those things with you today so you know them and you're ready for the workforce. I am originally from Peru. I was born in Peru, but I grew up in Japan. So that's why I speak Spanish and Japanese. And then I decided to come to the United States for college because I thought that would give me more opportunities. And it was true. I got more opportunities. I came here, I learned to speak English. Now I speak 3 languages. And definitely what led me to international business is that I wanted to use my experience and my languages in whatever job I was going to do. So that's what took me, and I like business, of course, and that's what took me to learn international business. I do have a concentration in marketing as well as minor in information systems, which I think complement my skills very well. And I was very lucky that in the middle of a pandemic, I actually found a job right out of school, and I'm still there, very happy. So hopefully I get to share that on my experience with all the participants here. Thank you.
Terrific. Congratulations again, Valeria. And I have a whole list of questions that I'm going to go through with the panelists. Be sure to put your questions in if you have any of those. There's so many different aspects to these panelists. I'm very excited. I'm going to start out with how wonderful their accomplishments, but what about missteps? So could you tell us about at least one misstep? I'm going to go back to Alexian and see about a misstep.
How much time do we have? Gosh, I have made a lot of mistakes throughout my career, and I could probably point to a lot of specifics, but I think probably the bigger issue is what contributed to those missteps. So I'm going to try to share a few comments, if I can, quickly on both. And I'll just say, first and foremost, especially to the ladies here, especially, I struggled for a really long time to understand my value. It's something I still deal with. Even my mom gave me a book about knowing my value. And I was thrilled, which is a little bit sad to say this, but I was thrilled to know that imposter syndrome was a real thing and that I wasn't alone in experiencing it. I was, early on in my career, I would see real issues as it related to pay and being afraid, just being thankful to have a job and somewhat afraid to say, wait a minute, I just heard my colleague talking about their compensation, which we do the same exact job and they make a lot more money. So, you know, I was afraid, and I was afraid. I didn't realize that it wasn't just me that it was happening to. I didn't realize that it was, you know, that maybe I wasn't, I don't know, smart enough, good enough, whatever. And so those were missteps that, boy, if I wish I could go back and be versed in, you know, in the things that I know now, if you will. But I will also say that I am incredibly protective of my team. It has not always been the right avenue, in that, you know, I want to protect them from making the same mistakes that I have done, which resulted in me coming off as a micromanager, as opposed to letting them fail on their own. And it's really, really important, I think, in the space of missteps. For a long time, I thought failure was something that I didn't want in my vocabulary, that was like embarrassing and shameful. But in reality, I learned that if I don't allow them to fail, if I don't allow myself to fail, I'm never going to grow. I'm never going to learn from those mistakes, and they're never going to become the leaders, the managers, et cetera, that they can be as well. So I have turned the negativity of the word failure into a positive, in recognizing that failure is a great teacher. I'll also say that even now, as somebody who manages risks regularly, I look back and I still have to be very conscious of opportunities that I would allow myself to miss due to fear of rejection, or even worse, again, fear of failure. So I think that I think missteps are going to happen. Take it in, let it happen. It's okay. It's going to make you stronger. You're going to be a better leader, and your people will be better for seeing you be able to fail in front of them, with them, and support them. So that's probably a really long answer there.
Well, thanks for sharing some of your mistakes, missteps, failures. Those are words that we don't often always talk about. And as we turn it over to Gabriel, I will mention that at OWIT New York, we do sometimes talk about these topics, imposter syndrome. We network to share some of these things, so we learn a little bit about that. So that is part of OWIT as well. And now I'll turn it over to Gabriel. A misstep or two?
Yeah, not failures, learning opportunities, I guess. A lot of those. Well, having been trying to develop business, and business can be cruel with you. So I have learned so many ways of not doing business, then, right? And that's part of life, right? But I guess for me, I don't know if it is a misstep, but it's a characteristic. I am interested in many things at the same time. I'm a generalist. So since I was a kid, I can do anything, but I get bored very soon. So one of the challenges for people who are generalists is that they tend to be superficial. So it's something that you struggle with, that you have to have enough knowledge about things you're doing to be functional, because you struggle with superficiality, and it can be seen as a lack of focus. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but it's something that I struggle with, and it's hard if you want to find a job. For instance, at my point in my career, to find a job, being generous, you say, "Oh, this guy doesn't have focus," because he's been all over the place. So this is something I would take a little more care. I would take a little more care if I had the chance to do it again.
Thank you for sharing that. You know, perceptions are very important to talk about, again, to reflect to each other. Perceptions, how do I perceive it? That's our reality. But how interesting that you said you also learned how not to do business. What a very interesting phrase to use. I appreciate that. Valeria, over to you.
Thank you. So like I said, I just graduated and my experience is very short compared to the other panelists, but what I can tell you is I did have a few missteps while I was still in school. And those were that I didn't maybe participate enough in not real life, but like work related events. Like this panel is one of, or this event is one of the opportunities that I see it's good for college students. But for example, networking is so important while you're still in college. And I feel like I didn't participate enough, just the ones that maybe school offer. But there's so many going on that I would say I would have loved to participate in those more because for example, I graduated in the middle of a pandemic. I was taking classes online this week, and then in a couple of weeks I was working now online also. So that transition didn't sit really well with me because I wasn't really prepared. Maybe I didn't know how to communicate well, or how things were so different from school to the work force. So I guess that was my misstep. I didn't prepare myself enough. And yeah, last year was kind of a different year, right, with the pandemic. But I still think and that's my advice for every student that might be here today that participate in networking events. Ask your professor, ask if it's okay if you participate. You just want to learn how people talk, the keywords they might use, or who you might talk to. Maybe you can get a mentor. That's really important. Something that, again, I didn't do, and that I wish I would have done. Something else is that in school, or at least while I was in school, my professors, especially in the classes for international business, they often mentioned that you might not get a job in international business right away, right after school, which, yeah, it might be true, but at the same time, you kind of keep that in your mind and you're like, okay, maybe I don't have to be so prepared because I'm still going to go into a normal business job and then transition into international business. But that might not be the case, right? I got a job in international business right after school. And again, another thing that I wasn't really prepared for. So preparation, I think, is key.
Thank you. That's so important about preparation. And again, I'm going to bring it back just a little bit. There are many organizations out here. The panelists, I'm sure, are involved in many different organizations. At OWIT New York, we do have volunteer opportunities. We do certain programs, and we do try to have students who can participate, even if it's just being a member, which means you just log in when you want, you read what you want. There's not a time commitment. So I know as a student, there are lots of time limitations, but what great advice and thoughts. Thank you all for sharing those thoughts. One of the questions that I'm going to go with next is, would you take us through one of your favorite projects at work? And again, I'm going to remind the panelists they can pass on any of these, but I'm going to turn again to Alexian. A favorite project?
Yes, I have a few, but I'll try to keep it simple and short. But I want to say to Valeria about the networking, and to everybody on this call, I freaking hate networking. It's hard, and it's really, it's a little scary, right? And I'm way in my career, so I'm not sure why you didn't take advantage of the networking, but I will tell you first that you are not alone. It is hard. It is, I mean, yes, I think somebody just put in the chat, it takes work. It is work. And if you have worked all day, you might not want to work again in the evening. But anyway, again, another story for another day. So Kathy, maybe that's a great topic for another OWIT or New York Public Library event. I will just say quickly, there are a couple things. One, our company is growing, and that makes my head spin sometimes at the pace in which we are growing. I am equally thankful for that growth. But one of the things that I love the most is doing talent strategy calls as we continue to grow, because it is amazing when I get on calls and we're able to look at our growth that is allowing for opportunities from entry-level positions all the way up to senior management and senior leadership roles. And to be able to see that as it unfolds and as it expands, and having kind of the team, if you will, work with us to create what those roles are and what they look like, it's really exciting. And I think it's, it's super cool to be able to say, if you think of a job that we don't currently offer, but you could see yourself filling, you're in it, you're thinking about it, let's talk. And so that's really neat, as opposed to the government, which was so structured and you knew exactly what the steps were and exactly, kind of what the opportunity was to be in a smaller company. And again, kind of like the lens opening, it's the same thing, right? It's the growth of the company and where we could go almost anywhere, and provide opportunities in different countries, in different space, operational, business development, client services. So that's really cool. Another thing that I'm really, really, really proud of is that we just started a senior leadership mentor program. So I am now mentoring 2 of the more junior staff in 2 different countries, and to get their perspectives, to understand more of, not only their history, but also more about their countries, right? Things that you don't necessarily get in the books. That's been pretty cool too.
Great. Gabriel, a favorite project you can tell us about?
Well, first is the company I have with my wife. I guess this is special for me, right? But I'm working in my job. I've been working in, I don't know if you use this expression in English, but we call line complementation in Portuguese. That you have a line of products, a company has a line of products, and you source new products to add to the product line. And this, for those we work in the business side of international trade, this is you do that all the time, and is the easiest way to build some business is to get a company who is already doing business in some specific market and add more products to their line. And I've been doing this in several cases, but this one is special. It's an American company. We're selling to Brazil, and we did some things right. We had a bit of luck, and it's doing great. So yes, it's
Great, very good, very interesting. Valeria.
Well, I guess my favorite job or project is my actual job. When I first started here at Varos Insurance, it's an insurance brokerage that was trying to go international. So I got here as the person that was going to prepare the whole, well, not the whole thing on my own, but with the owner, prepare the international launch. So I got to be the person that connected with other people in other countries, network again with other people, join organizations, see how we can market in different countries and so on. So that's still part of my job, still why I love doing what I'm doing. And yeah, I got to use a lot of the things that I actually learned in class. So happy I paid attention. But at the same time, I got to learn a lot from these other people that I connected with. So that's definitely still one of my favorite projects that's still going on and hopefully doesn't stop anytime soon.
Terrific. Well, a couple of things happening here where the next question is closely linked to this because it's a little bit more, if you could tell us about your actual work, day-to-day tasks, help us understand maybe a week in your work life. So I'm going to go to Alexian for this, but I'm also going to note to Gabriel, there's a question about the actual company name of you and your wife's company. So feel free to put that in there at any point, piquing interest. So Alexian.
Thanks, Kathy. Those great questions. And maybe I should start by saying that I actually feel like I have the wrong title. Instead of Chief Operating Officer, I feel like my title could be and maybe should be Chief Chaos Officer. With 10 foreign subsidiary offices, 2 on the horizon. And like I said, our business is not slowing down. There's no normal day, no normal week. And oftentimes my job is literally focused on fighting the fire at hand. And with so many offices, so within so many industries, anything is possible. But if I was to give you a glimpse into my world, I would say that because our business is focused on Asia and that roughly 12-hour time difference, my days always start early, and they regularly go well into the evenings. I deal with a lot of issues that people don't typically have exposure to through an international lens. These include international law, IT security and data privacy across country lines, understanding HR, international accounting, tax regulations, and keeping in mind that what's a benefit or acceptable in one country may not be in another. And compliance. Yeah, did I mention compliance? Which is ever changing, and the list goes on. So I guess one thing I can say for sure, I am still learning in this role after 10 years every single day, which is also a blessing and a curse.
Lifelong learning, the New York Public Library, I guess we're in the right place. And with that, Gabriel, I'm sure there's overlap for you. Any additional comments?
Well, a part of problem solving, that's basically what you do all day long, right? I have a couple of meetings every day early because I work with the Brazilian schedule. So I start now when I started daylight saving time, my first meeting will be at 6. And when you work with international trade, you get used to that. You call China, India at the middle of the night, wake up early. That's I guess this is part of the environment of doing this international business, and it's fun. It's not a problem. And then, well, I daily deal with quotations, shipments, and this type of operational stuff. And then okay, I have also some projects for process improvement, process change. That is another part of what I do. So basically, I do this every day. This is my daily routine. Oh, and the name of the company, the company I have with my wife is Volta Atelier. That's the name of the company. So I don't know if somebody asked that.
Very good. They did, and you can feel free to put links if you want as we're continuing on, because getting up early, staying up late, that could sound like student life. I don't know. Is that familiar to you as also, Valeria? Any additional comments?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's part of being a student also. And yeah, if you study international business, you might as well keep your student schedule because it's going to be like that.
Very good. Thanks. Well, we've been able to learn lots in this short amount of time about each of the panelists. We're going to turn now to a question about getting a job or what it's like from their point of view. So my question is, what impresses you the most when you are considering hiring someone? So for this, Alexian, what do you consider most?
Well, I guess hiring to me, it's not only about like BGA finding the right talent and great talent, but it's also about the individual being the right fit for the company. And I think it's really, really, really important for anyone who's pursuing a new opportunity to remember that the fit needs to go both ways. So I have some friends, colleagues, et cetera, who go through long interview processes and they come back and they say, oh, the people who interviewed me, they've been so rude and, they were late and, all of these things. And it's just totally contrary to who I know them to be as professionals, that I find myself saying, I know that job looks great on paper, but, and so I just think that that's really, really, really important. If you're having kind of the wrong feeling about a process, and I know this is a little bit opposite to the question at hand, but recognize that it needs to be a full good fit for everybody. And it's okay to say this isn't the right fit for me. But to answer your question, I want to talk to somebody who can actually share their story with me. The resume has gotten them into the door, but I don't want anybody to just sit and regurgitate the things that I've already read. So I like seeing that people come well prepared. And by that, I mean that they've done their homework on the company, the position as best they can, and even the people that they're going to be interviewing with, right? Most all of us are on LinkedIn, or our bio is thrown up on our website, right? So you can get some information about us, if you will. And maybe, maybe you read my bio on the website and you realize that we grew up in the same small town, right? So we have that connection. It's an ability to link you to a kind of a higher level, if you will, within the interview process. I especially love it when someone asks me from my vantage point, what's the most challenging aspect of the role that they're applying for? And it's just, for me, it's those little attention to detail items and the questions that show me that the candidate is prepared. And I mean, with the slogan kind of in it to win it, right?
Great. I'm sure those things impress you, Gabriel. Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I'm not very good at that. I don't. It's something that it's not in me to choose the right people. We always tend to choose someone who is similar to you. So this is all the natural tendency to see someone who thinks just like you think and behaves like you behave. This is you have this we have this natural tendency to choose someone who's closer, and this might be unfair and might be not the best decision. And also, well, what I can say is that in the long run, a person that is a no-can-do person, it's very difficult to work with. So it's not the person who has to say yes to everything and be highly motivated, but a person who everything is difficult and everything is not possible to do, and if she's difficult to everything, it's very hard. I just can't work with someone like that. So I guess it's the best contribution I can do for that.
Yes, I think those are very important words to say. And we had talked about, different experiences just on this panel alone. So certainly working with people who are coming from different experiences with different perspectives is just so important. Again, a whole nother webinar we could do on that. But I also hear you saying that we're stronger together. Perhaps one person's weakness, hiring or other, then we turn to somebody else, or we have a couple of opinions about it. So very interesting. Appreciate that. Valeria, something from your point of view?
Well, definitely agree with what they just said. One more thing to add, I would say is if you are in international business, international trade, definitely keeping an open mind is very important. I'll give you a personal example. I grew up in Japan, and then I also come from a country, Peru, which I was really close to growing up. But things are more personal, even on a job interview, whereas here in America, everything is so direct to the point. But sometimes that doesn't tell me who you are, what you think, your ethics and stuff like that. So I want to get a little more personal. And I would say when you are in an international business environment, that is so important because you're going to meet people from all over the world. So keeping those, or an open mind, I would say, when hiring people is very important. That might not be a job title, but it's a small business. I'm definitely involved in hiring people. And I would say that the people that are from the United States that never been outside of the country, compared to someone that has come from a different country or has visited many countries, have two different mindsets. And I do go towards the person that has more exposure.
Very good. Thank you. It gets us also into the topic of the multicultural environments that many work in international trade and the sensitivities there. I'm not sure if we'll talk more about that, but just want to note that. And thanks for those comments. I'm going to go to the question related to this, which is, what is some of the best career advice you have actually received? Alexia?
Oh, gosh. I feel like I could probably write a book on all of the great advice that I feel like I am from just so many amazing people. But the first one, everybody, please hear me. Invest in your 401k. Do it. Even if you think you can't do it, do it. Start small, $5, $10. If that's all you can do it. That is, I think, really practical and important, especially for your retirement. Next, and I guess the other kind of really impactful one for me is follow your passion and recognize that your passion at 20, at 30, at 40, at 50 may be very different. So that may result in you having a conversation with yourself that says, is it time to change careers? I grew up being taught that you pick a career and you stay in it forever. And boy, if I had stuck with that, the opportunities that I would have missed. So don't let fear of, the fact that you have whatever within your current career, don't let that hold you back from changing, because we are constant evolution. So that's it.
Great career advice. Gabriel, something to add?
Yeah, well, when I was working, starting my career as an attorney, I received the advice to be, what you can say, you have to be trustworthy. Even being an attorney, that we expect some kind of sharp behavior. They say, no, you have to be, I was told to be trustworthy, because in the long run, you get more being trustworthy. And if you go to international trade, you think, wow, it's a big world. But when you realize that you're dealing with some specific markets, some specific group of people, it's a very small world. Everybody knows each other. So you have to be trustworthy. You have to be a decent human being. You're not going to stay forever in your job. You need to change job. People change jobs too. And I guess I guess you should not say you need to give reasons for someone to be trustworthy, but there's a lot of them outside, right?
Absolutely. And it brings up, as you're talking about, reputation, how difficult or how much work to build it up, how easily for it to slide. And so that is true everywhere, but in international trade, we all rely on each other for all kinds of things. And that's part of the networking, is to help get clients, to help build business, all of that. Thank you. Very important. Valeria?
Yeah, so two come to mind. Well, the first one is related to trust. Trust, it's always have a positive attitude, right? That's contagious, and it's true. I mean, if someone has an attitude that is negative, or maybe doesn't want to listen to what you're saying, like, you can sense it, you can tell it, and maybe you right there, you just broke a connection that might help you here in a few years, right? So a great attitude all the time, no matter what's going on, it's good to have. And another one is, don't overthink it. I think when it comes to being a student, you and are starting to apply to jobs, you're like overthinking, oh my God, am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to know what's going to happen? And so on. Don't overthink it, just do it. Be honest to the other person. I think I can do this, I can do that, I'm going to need help with that, but don't overthink it.
Excellent advice. And, in this year of the pandemic, and as you graduated, having a positive attitude to be contagious, what a wonderful piece of advice. So we'll go from there. I am just going to pause and see if Alex or Peter have a question or anything that they've received that we haven't addressed, and just pause for a moment. We have plenty more questions.
Well, I'm quite surprised there haven't been many questions coming in. I mean, the first question was about Gabriel's company, which we answered. It was Volta Atelier. And then there's an observation about, I don't know if you read the observation from the OWIT, not from the, it's from somebody who says, I try to get my students to attend OWIT events with amazing speakers. And out of 60 plus students, maybe 3 said they would come, and actually 2 would show up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, I think it kind of circles back to the idea you need to get yourself out there, network, and teach yourself or inform yourself what's out there. So, my question is, let's say you're midlife, you really can't go back to college and get another degree. What fields do you feel that somebody could maybe get an entry-level position in and maybe work their way up? Because, and all the years that I've been doing international trade research at the library, I've always heard about people that kind of just out of high school went into a logistics company, learned they loved it, they became a customs broker, and they love doing that. So, do you feel there are similar fields, or is logistics still a good field to go into? Or, what would be a good field? What are good fertile fields for people to kind of maybe get a foothold in, and then maybe work their way up if they're not necessarily academically oriented?
May I answer that? I don't know if I directly answered this question, but I'll share something that happened to me because I changed my career path when I was 30 something. I was attorney in public service, and I went to the business world. And what I learned with that is that you have a learning curve that you have to learn your way out in the new business, in the new environment you are. But the whole experience you had in the past, it counts, it adds up with what you are learning. And in a very short period of time, you are an experienced professional in that new field. It's much, you get experience much quicker than if you were starting as a young kid, starting to do it from the beginning, because you have all all those experience from the past that can be in a very different field, but you're dealing with people, and people are the same, no matter what field they are working, right? So that I don't know, maybe this is my perspective on that.
I agree with that. I think that, I mean, it's a different story if you want to be a brain surgeon or, a nurse. Obviously, that's going to take a lot more time. But I think to how networking can play into that, if you have a career history already, even if it's in a different industry, you can still pull out a lot of the strong points, right? So strategy is strategy. It might just be sitting in a different industry, right? HR is HR. It just may be sitting in different companies or different countries. So I think I completely agree with that, you don't necessarily have to go back to school if you already have a reputation. Also in the networking space, if you know that all of a sudden you want to change from, I don't know, computer programming to, I don't know, basket weaving, right? You might join some basket weaving networking opportunities, meet people that are in that industry, and then start to make connections, because we all know that a lot of opportunities come from those that you've networked with. And so I think that that's really important as well. Just figure out through LinkedIn, who are the people at the companies that I want to work for, and how do I, make those connections.
Valeria, comment?
I would say I agree with the panelists. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go back to school or anything like that. For example, I feel like there's different type of people. You have to know yourself, right? Maybe you want to be into business or even international business, but don't want to do the schoolwork. So you start a logistic company for like that, and you learn in the field, right? If that's what you like to do, then go for it. Or if you want to go to school, maybe take a few business courses to know the basic, and then go for the logistic position, then go for it. Or if like me, if you like reading, maybe you like classes, then finish your degree and then find a job. I think all of those are good options. You just have to take the time to know what you like. If you like learning reading, if you like learning in action, doing it, a physical job, or, you have to learn what you like and then take the opportunity.
Great. And I'll just add, I'm going to put the link for the OWIT New York, but in addition to that, partnerships seem to be such an important way of learning, either whether you're volunteering or you do some kind of consulting to a partner, something like that. It's a very good way to either test out some new skills or even gain some new skills sometimes. So I will mention that as well. Peter, we can go around one more time to the panelists and kind of have them offer a comment or a question, something they might want to say to us as we wrap up, unless you have another question or comment for
I
them.
really don't have another question. I mean, my main concern with this program today was for the people that, let's say, are midlife and, either for whatever reason they've been laid off or they need to find a job. As I said, I've always heard that logistics was always like a good starting point for people. I don't think people are aware of that. So I wanted information that would maybe, cause a spark to cause people to think, well, maybe that's a direction I could go into. I never thought of that. Or, in terms of networking or mentoring, maybe other programs that somebody could start off with. So that was my main concern with this program today. But, whatever experiences you could relate would be fine. I'd love to hear.
Great. So I think I'm going to go first to Gabriel this time and just see if there happen to be any resources, podcasts, things that you might want to, again, to Peter's question and even more generally, if there's anything like that. And then I'll go to Valeria and back to Alexian.
Well, I think well, my side of international trade, that is business, it's nothing different than commerce. We're selling something to someone, and to build that, we need customers. And it's very, very easy to go outside and find 99.9% of the suppliers are willing to sell. You can find anywhere. Sure, there are some areas who are more regulated, more strict, but in general, you can buy anything anywhere. The problem is to sell to someone, and still it's a commercial problem. It's not a problem of sourcing nowadays. It's a problem of finding someone interested in buying your product. So if you can find a path to build a business from scratch based on the from the customer side, find something to do add value to the customer, you can build a business from scratch. It's not that you need you don't need anybody to do that. You can do it yourself, right? And you have, I don't know, there are so many sources and YouTube and videos telling how you ship something, what you need to do to import, and if you want some more advanced, there's the public library and can give you all that type of information. So I guess information is available. It's not the problem. From the business standpoint, the problem is the customer. It's always the customer. And I know, for instance, in New York, you have so many different communities and so much trade business related with communities, with different cultures, different immigrant communities, and this is also opportunity. So I don't know if this work. In general, I would if someone is starting from not changing path but is starting, I would say learn on negotiation. It's fundamental for everything you do, because you use it everywhere and it's basic for business too. The most you understand negotiation, the farthest you go on business now. So that would be my advice.
Very good. Well, that's excellent advice, and I'll take the negotiating to negotiate with Peter. Do we get a few more minutes, or should we wrap up? Okay, we're going to
No,
negotiate.
no, please. I mean, it's 2:59. We can go another 5, 6, 7 minutes, or
Terrific. So for the participants, if you have to sign off, we certainly understand, but what we're going to do is go around to Valeria and Alexia and get some final comments from them. Want to make sure that a big thank you to our participants, to New York Public Library. And as you can tell by who we are and what we're doing, resources at the New York Public Library are something that we access. We were talking about that as we were preparing for this webinar. So over to you, Valeria.
Thank you, Kathy. Well, I would say my final advice, I agree a lot with Gabriel. It made me think of what I use, and it's definitely information and resources out there. Anything nowadays, I just Google it if I don't know how to do it. And that applies to what I do for my job. If I don't know how to use, I don't know, an app or something, I Google it. If I don't know what something means, even though that's what I study for, then I Google it, so always look for the information. And maybe if you are in the middle of your career, you're not loving your job, it's okay to change career. My husband is 32 years old and he is, like he says, I'm still in school and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, well, you went back to school to get a degree in what you like doing. So, don't discourage yourself or anything like that. And lastly, if you ever go to school, community college, university, they always have resources available to you even after you graduated. It's funny, but I transferred to Temple University after my community college, but I always go back to their resources, the community college resources, to look for, I don't know, maybe different jobs, what's going on, their library databases and so on. So there's always opportunities, you just have to look for them.
Excellent. So much in there, Valeria. Time is up, so I can't go on. I will just go to Alexian.
Thanks, Kathy. I think that as a business community right now, we are in a new awakening. I mean, I think that as leaders, you know, what once was, it's just business, it's not personal, has flipped upside down, and it is personal, right? It is personal. We are now, you know, everybody doesn't have a, you know, identical office or identical cubicle, but instead we've spent the last 18 plus months coming into the lives of our colleagues and recognizing that just as, you know, not all COVID response has been equal, not all home life is equal either. And so businesses, leaders right now, I think, are really challenged to create environments that are more supportive than maybe they've ever had to be. So as people are looking at changing careers, be open to having those conversations. If you have spent years in strategy, if you have spent years in logistics, be open to having the conversation to say, look, I bring a wealth of knowledge. This is what I know, this is what I've done, but I'm also interested in X, Y, and Z, and these are the reasons. And we're all part of this great resignation that is happening right now, where people are really looking at, what do I need to be happy? How can I support my family? You know, I need to have very, very, very flexible hours right now because of students who are still in and out of school, depending on where you live. All of that is really real. And being a part of that conversation, again, going back to networking, being a part of it, sharing your input, what's important. You're going to be surprised by the different people that you will meet along the way and the opportunities to share your story. So I would say, make sure you know your story and can articulate it.
Thank you. I think the panelists have said a great amount of information that is useful, practical, encouraging, contagious, and all kinds of wonderful things. Peter, anything last comments from you? Nope. Okay. Thank you very much, New York Public Library. We appreciate it. Thanks to each of our panelists. What a wonderful amount of information for us to share. Thank you for the participants for spending your time. We hope to see you on another webinar. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.